Let's go, 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 go. And we are live. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. The bubble around my head suggests that the sound is going. And I also hear the sound on YouTube. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest in the building. We have a guest, someone that is no stranger to a lot of you. Definitely no stranger to Nicer. Shout out to Shot Copy in the house. Shout out to Titan Moore in the house. Okay. Today, we're taking it easy. We're going to have a conversation with King Will Says. All right. And I'm not going to do much of a teaser, much of a preamble, much of a preface, or nothing like that. No epilogue. We're just going to go right into it. Let's play our theme song, and we'll come right back with King Will Says. On the shore, relentless in the war, the legions in our hearts, shed waters in our balls, the spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest, the cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand, stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. With the semblance of a blaze, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. All right. Just like that, all of a sudden, we appear live and direct on your screen. It might be an iPad, it might be a telephone, it might be a monitor. Some of you guys are actually sitting in front of monitors right now. And you guys have headphones in your ears, maybe it's coming out of speakers, but we are live, ladies and gentlemen, and I got King Will Says in the building. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, he is someone that, okay, of course, now I'm getting the phone call, right? People always trying to call me.
Gotta love that.
People are always trying to call me. King Will, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the people who don't know who you are? Who is King Will? And what does he have to say? What's this King Will Says business? Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on the platform. You know, I actually am a big fan. Big fan.
No,
I enjoy the content, but also to introduce myself, yes, my name is King Will Says. I am a content creator here on the platform of YouTube. You guys go look me up, right? It says it's King Will Says on YouTube. I'm pretty much a guy that is about positive vibes, motivation, and things like that. Also, the king of logical content, as I like to say. Yeah, I'm just a guy that has an opinion really at the core of it all. Just a guy with an opinion and critical thinker.
critical thinker, guy with an opinion. You know what? I first saw you, I believe, either you had Solo on or Solo had you on, right? Am I correct? You've been on Solo TV 84, right? You and Solo
Yes.
have collaborated, okay? And yes, that's how I started following you and following your content. So speaking of your content and related to the what I'm calling the topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that you started making this series called The Therapy of a Black Man. Am I correct? Is that the
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I did. I did create that. I started that, and I plan on keeping it going. I see a bigger vision for it as far as something guest based. I would like to get more of guests to come in who just wants to have a real talk, just very real, raw talk about the therapy of the Black man that is needed.
Okay. So, well, let me take a step back to just ask a question that you perhaps already answered, and you answered vis-a-vis. Well, this is what you wanted. You would like people to come on. You mentioned real talk. You mentioned that the therapy is needed. So let me ask then, formally,
Yes,
why
sir.
did you start that series?
Well, I started it because of coming into the space of which is what was is the manosphere and things like that, and coming into this space we have a lot, well, specifically of course the Black manosphere and just the Black male creators and things like that. It's a lot of pain. It's a lot of pain. It's a lot of unprocessed things. And me as a Black man myself relate to that. I because I have my own issues psychologically that are blocking me, psychologically that are affecting me still till this day that I have to work through. But a lot of us don't work with that because the Black community, we don't really believe in therapy. We don't believe in really talking our problems out. The newer generation, I do believe, is probably breaking that down somewhat, more open talk about mental health and taking care of your mental health and all that good stuff. But the older generation is more so sweep it under the rug, don't talk about it, keep pushing a negative connotation on mental health. In the Black community, if you tell somebody that you got a therapist and you're Black, they think you're crazy.
Well, maybe you are.
You could be. You could be.
There's nothing wrong with that, but at least a lot of us are crazy. At least you're doing something about it, right?
Right. Yeah. At least you're doing something about it. You're seeking some help. But also on that, right? There's people who think that's the perception. Well, yeah, you probably are crazy. Or, a lot of people don't have that person that they can confide in and talk to. If they have deep personal thoughts, and a lot of times you need a person to lean on to process your said thoughts that you're having. And I think there's a lot of people who don't have any processing of thoughts or feelings, and especially men, because nobody wants to hear men on our problems. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about hearing anything about our pain or struggle. Anytime a man says I'm struggling and I'm in, is shut up. That's what you get. Shut up. You're a man. Suck it up. Keep it pushing. And that, I think that's why that series. I was inspired to make that series.
I see. Black manosphere, a lot of pain, and generally speaking, you're within a landscape where there's a negative connotation to the whole aspect of either talking about it or even, let's say, using the word therapy. Now, why do you think that connotation exists? You kind of just described it, saying, well, there is a negative connotation. If somebody says, yes, I have a therapist, for example, they call you crazy. Now, do you have any ideas? I'm not saying that it's an easy question or perhaps that there's a clear
Mhm.
answer to it, but do you have any ideas as to why that particular negative connotation exists within the community?
Ah, man, I wish I knew. I've actually searched around for that answer.
Hmm.
Where it stemmed from, what's the origin of it? I don't know. I don't know. It's just something kind of you're just born into, right? You just
Hmm.
you come into the world, into your respective community, and then you pick up these things, and they just are the norm. But nobody talks
Hmm.
about it. I have no idea where or why or this super negative. I mean, I guess because yeah, generally speaking, yeah, if you are seeing a therapist or in therapy, you might have a little something unstable about there's something going on.
Hmm.
You're not all the way
Okay.
there, possibly. But I think as human beings, we're so prone to go to extremes rather than seeing in the middle, in the medium of things. People just kind of go from one end of the spectrum to the next end of the spectrum, and that's where everybody goes. But there's this middle part, this middle part in between those two extremes,
Hmm.
where you just have people who just need, honestly, they just need somebody to help them process their feelings and thoughts.
I see. As you're talking, it something came to mind because I'm trying to well, it's interesting, right? It's interesting this particular question that we're on right now, which is, well, why the negative connotation? And a lot of times, or shall I say, perhaps in this case, in considering what the negative connotation or the root of the negative connotation, one may begin to unearth a lot of the actual problems, right? Uh,
Right.
Psychologically, that need therapy within the community by understanding why there is a negative connotation towards that, right?
Right.
Because, if you have some kind of a resistance towards something, there's something that you're constantly like, you don't want to go down that alley. Let's not look over there. Let's ignore the big elephant in the room. It does, what are you talking about? What elephant, right? That kind of thing. The the fact that that is a symptom in and of itself. So as you were mentioning that, something came to mind, and let me know what you think about this, right? There is
Mhm.
a there is a general, and we're being honest here, right? There's a general kind of thing about, well, let me put it in a phrase. That's what white people do, right? Uh,
Yeah.
do you think any of that, or you think that has anything to do with this?
That's yeah. Honestly, yeah. I think that's honestly can definitely be said. That's part of it, definitely. Because you actually hear that. A lot of
Hmm.
people say, that's in the community. You hear that. Yeah, no, that's what black people do. No, I mean white people do. That's what white people do. That's that white people shit.
Hmm.
Like that's what
Hmm.
people. That's what you hear people say, and it's just like. I, I think it suppresses and puts, yeah, it does reinforce that negative connotation, that negative force to where, yeah, it just makes people deter away from actually seeking help. Because there's a lot of people that
Hmm.
need help. There's a lot of people that
Hmm.
need help. And I think that needs to go away. I mean, it is kind of some white people stuff. I mean, white people, they got therapists. A lot of them have therapists. That's true. It's so true. So yeah, it is some white people stuff, but I mean, you have a lot of people that need help. A lot of people are coming from these single parent households, these single mother households. You know, a lot of bad things are happening. And as a child, and you internalize that, you keep it in, and it affects you as an adult, especially when we're talking about the black man is concerned.
That's interesting. And I think, we're making, since, I'm pushing on this and we seem to be making some headway, and it's rather interesting to me. So, negative connotation to this word. We say, okay, perhaps, and it is linked, as a matter of fact, it is kind of in that big basket of that's what white people do. And
Right.
then whenever anything is in that basket, it is immediately dismissed. And there is a aspect of weakness that is attached to that basket, right? Or
Right.
you're weak, you're doing
Mhm.
that stuff. And then it's weak, it's lame. As a matter of fact, uh, let's say talking white. Okay, that's another thing. Okay, you're talking white, you're going to a therapist, you got a book, you got a backpack full of books, and so on and so forth. Okay, now before we go and explore the whole basket, because that's a very big, complex basket full of all kinds of BS, right?
It's super
But if we stick with this weakness aspect, okay,
big.
I don't you think it's rather ironic that you're calling it weak? You may see where I'm going there, right? Like
Right.
it's not like you're over here standing with your boots on the neck of these people that you're calling weak,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You see, there's some kind of reverse psychology going on. Well, yeah, let me not
Yeah.
over, but you see
Society.
what I'm saying because
Right.
typically people do that a lot, right? When it's that whole compensation, right? You're compensating, right?
Right.
You're compensating. You turn it all, and then it ends up being something where, as I was listening to, I believe, Ramil's panel the other day, and someone said, like it's like the bizarro world. Everything that's good becomes bad. Everything that's bad becomes good, and you just keep on digging and digging and digging in order to create some kind of identity for yourself that is different from the other. You start and this is one thing coming from the outside. I'm an immigrant, right? So this for me is not a. I can only tangentially relate in the sense that I'm a human being and I can observe and I get it in terms of the American situation is a unique situation, but still there's racial stuff going on all over the world, right?
Right.
So the the one thing that I do notice is that Americans in general, okay, it's not a black thing or a white thing,
Mhm.
how they look at the whole world. They look at America as though America is the whole world, right?
Very true.
With your World Series and your world champions and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Hence, people tend to forget like there are certain standards that are outside the world that has nothing to do with your, let's say, particular set of cultural tensions, racial tensions, if you will, in America. Take for
Mhm.
example, okay, um, what white people do. If you go to the Middle East or go to China or go to Africa, so on and so forth, let's say it be, focusing on education or focusing on business or having certain standards and so on and so forth, that's not a white thing or a black thing, right? It's just they're international standards for business. Wear a suit, for example. They're international standards for what male usefulness is, right? And it's
Mhm.
not about dancing or, having swag, right?
Right.
It's just that nowhere else in the world ever has it kind of been that kind of a thing. But America tends to be very kind of myopic, and obviously for good reason. It's a big continent. There's an ocean here, ocean there. Why should you be paying attention to the rest of the world? Rather self-sufficient, so on and so forth, on top of the heap. So why should you pay attention, right? But as a result, you start to kind of look at everything in America as though, oh, there is no broader world out there with broader standards, and hence everything becomes like a white thing versus a black thing, and
Mhm.
everyone else in the world is looking at you like, what are you talking about?
Right. Right. America has its own, definitely has its own culture. Literally, a lot of Americans live in our own fishbowl, so to speak.
Hmm.
We can't see beyond, because really, honestly, we all can't see beyond our personal globe that we all live on. Like, if you've never, a person who's never been outside of, let's say, Los Angeles, has never been outside of Los Angeles, they're very ignorant to a lot of stuff. They just don't know. Same thing can be applied to Americans. A lot of Americans don't leave the country, especially
Hmm. Hmm.
especially the black community. No, a lot of people don't travel, and so they don't really know much. But we think that everything here is what really matters. And it's really interesting.
Hmm.
But it's very interesting how the UK, so to speak,
Hmm.
is very reflective of what America is. You know,
Yeah, can you expand on that? What do you mean?
well, I guess you can say, the UK, United Kingdom, is majority white. It's a
Hmm.
very white country
Hmm.
with only 3% black people.
Hmm.
Versus just like here, where I think what the number here is like what 75%, 70 something percent white, and it's like 14-15% of black. And you know, the Latinos have caught up to the black people have actually passed us up for you know, most
Yeah.
people, second most people here. So now black people are third. So yeah, it's kind of very interesting how certain places reflect that, but then only the UK and America reflect each other in that aspect. As far as there's a vast majority of white and a low, you know, minority of other ethnicities. But then you look at Canada; it's very, very, very racially like rich with a bunch of different cultures. Like you know, you have the French Canadians,
Mm-hmm.
but the French hate the French Canadians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So uh, tribalism of all kinds, which is another thing. Okay, another thing that relates to what I was saying earlier about Americans looking at the American situation. Obviously, that's what is in front of you to show. Therefore, you look at it. This is not kind of, blaming anybody for doing that. But it's a big world out there, and there's the internet and all this stuff. So there is no kind of the whole kind of local thing, died away a long time ago. It's a global competitive world, so on and so forth. So we're talking globally now, and something about tribalism is something that I think Americans are not privy to, don't understand, have not seen. So a lot of times, like for example, you go to Africa, okay? Black people, okay? You go to Africa, you could pick a particular country, you go to Nigeria, okay? You go from one little village here
Right.
and you go to the next city, different language, different people, and they don't really like each other. Okay.
Mm,
And they have all kinds of reasons why they should not. In other words, this is a human condition. Okay. Like it, I think that Americans don't really understand that tribalism, whether it be from an ethnocentric point of view or any other ways, any other lines along which you can draw dividing lines. Okay, that this is a human thing that people do. And I'm sure you've heard of the studies, right, where
mhm.
you have I forget what colors they use, the kids, and okay, there's the purple, and then there's the blue kids, and it's just play, but they end up hating each other because, well, I'm purple, I'm team purple.
Right.
So this is something that I think that Americans can, it will help in understanding that this is part of the human condition, and not to look at it as such a special, crazy, and crippling and difficult scenario, right? And the
Right.
world is complex, human beings are complex, and so on and so forth. Now, moving just one step forward. Now, you mentioned, and you given some kind of descriptive in terms of the picture. You said, okay,
Mm,
people growing up in certain kinds of dysfunction, right,
right.
within the community.
Mhm.
Okay, so you think that there are particular aspects of dysfunction that are unique to the Black community that therefore you would need therapy for the therapy of a Black man? And I'm sure you think so, and you already described that, but can you, what does that really look like? How does that manifest itself, if you will? You kind of described the sociological aspect,
Right.
this kind of a family, that kind of a thing, so on and so forth. But how does that manifest itself? You said that it affects you when you go on. How does it manifest itself?
Well, as we all know, everything as a child, you're just a walking foundation, right? You know,
Hmm.
that's your foundational phase of your life, where a lot of things are established. A lot of because behavior is programmed. I mean, when you are born, you do have your preset as far as from your mom and your dad. That's your preset. You know, of what's going to come as you get older. But that's only a certain percentage. Everything else is, from the outer. You're learning things from the outside. You're learning things of social norms, the social programming. What's this and what's that? What's good and what's bad? What's acceptable, what's not acceptable, you know, or how you should look at things and things like racism, which is the biggest topic right now, that has been the theme of this year. That is a not pre, but that is something that's taught. That's a taught, learned thing. You're not born inherently racist, but your parents, your family, who is your tribe, your circle, can teach you that, hey, you're this kind of color, so you're better than these other people. Or
Mm.
that's what socially you're being taught. So there's social programming and things like that. And moving on from that, when you're a kid, you're internalizing a lot of things. You're picking up a lot of traumas, especially because when I used, like I said, I painted it with like single parent households, which is very
Mm-hmm.
prominent in the Black community, right? You have mostly single mothers that do not know how to handle, their kids at times, because it's hard. It's not a one parent job. It's supposed to be a two parent job.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a lot of these mothers, or you have a lot of these fathers who do certain things that would traumatize that kid, and say, for myself, like with a lot of Black men, your mom, because in the Black community, Black mothers are very sharp with the tongue. Very sharp with the tongue. They will lash your confidence to nothing, to absolute nothingness, if she wanted to, especially when you're a young, impressionable child. So,
Mm-hmm.
but how they're taught, you talk crazy to your kids. Sit here, do this, motherfucker, this, that, and of course the smacking, the go get a switch, extension cords, all that traditional things that is taught in the Black community. That affects you, especially, but mainly the verbal abuse,
Mm.
um, which isn't deserved because we didn't ask to be here, but
Mm-hmm.
because of, say, I don't know, the father's not around and the woman decides to keep the son, and then the son looks like the father. She, which she probably doesn't mean to, but she
Mm.
does tend to lash out because that child is a big reminder of what failed, or what was, or a big mistake, and it's like she kind of indirectly takes it out on you, or sometimes directly, and you feel that when you grow up.
That is very interesting. The indirectly taken out aspect. And also, when you were mentioning that, something kind of came to mind, which is that there are other cultures. Let's just take the Africans, one that I know in particular, right? I know that one. But also, you can take Middle Eastern, you could take the Chinese, tiger moms, so on and so forth, right? There
Right.
are other cultures that have an emphasis on strictness and discipline and so on and so forth, right? However, it seems to be different when it is applied with within a two-parent structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, well, I didn't grow up in a family with I had both of my parents, right?
Right.
But it seems like there is a difference when there is a man in the house imposing that discipline versus when it's a woman. And it could be the same discipline. You're getting your ass whooped and all these other things going on, but there is a difference, and it is something that even beyond. Um, Let me put it this way, okay? Even outside of the family, outside of being raised in that particular context, there is
Mm-hmm.
a big difference between um, the way men check each other and then the way women check each other. Now, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
picking on anyone,
Right.
but I tend to think that women tend to cross the line because in this particular context, which is the context of outside the home now,
Mm-hmm.
there is no threat of physical violence, or that is not their forte. That is not the realm in which they play. In other words, you and I, if we have some disagreement, we know where the line is beyond which now something has to be done. Either we're going to go to blows or we got to cut it off. We're not just going to be bickering back and forth with each other and pushing each other's buttons and then crossing that line all the time. Just, doing that kind of stuff. Men tend not to do that. And I
Right.
think that a lot of times women just cross that line with men a lot because they don't really understand that. And a lot of times too, men don't know how to deal with that because men amongst us, we don't do that stuff. We're not pushing our buttons. You don't push another man's buttons. Why? If you got an issue and it's gone to that level, as I always say, it's either 0 or 1 with men. Like it's either black or white. Are we gonna start punching each other or what? Why? What are we talking about, right? So that's kind of interesting that you mentioned that. Yes, and I do know that there is a lot of line crossing, and I do
I
think it's
do
quite
want to
different.
piggyback off of what you just said though, because it just hit me
Hmm.
that that's another thing that also is also crippling to, say, a young boy growing up with a single mother. Uh, you don't have that example, right? So you're pulling from your mom because when you're a child, you are learning from what you see. You're just a walking video recorder, tape recorder. So if you are picking up things and you are just raised within your mom, you don't have the male example to pick up from. So this, how your mother handles things, you internalize that and you pick that up. You pick those traits up. So you do.
Hmm.
That's where the effeminate man comes from, where he
Hmm.
does exhibit, female-like behaviors with how he deals with other men.
Hmm.
You know,
And you mean that it comes across as hyper masculinity, right? You're don't
right?
don't scuff my Jordans. I'm gonna kill everybody in the bus and I'm gonna get all crazy type stuff, right?
Yeah, it can go that way because it's an imbalance. A single parent household was never anticipated to be such a consistent, if not the norm now,
Hmm.
for raising a child. 9 times out of 10 now these days, you're gonna see more of a single mother than that two-parent household, the nuclear family that has been dead and gone for, I would have to say, the last 20, 30 years.
Hmm. Interesting. So, in your thoughts about this, which it seems like you've given it quite a bit of thought, you started this series called Therapy of a Black Man, and you guys go ahead and I see the short cappy left the link to King Will Says and the Unspecialist actually. Go ahead and subscribe to his channel, ladies and gentlemen, those of you in the chat right now, and those whom will be watching later on and into the future, into the millennia, thousands and thousands of years from now. After you're long gone, your channel will still be there and more people should be subscribing. All
Yep.
right. So now what is the role of responsibility? Because we just described that guy, okay? He only had his mother to view in terms of how you deal with situations, which is, and his mother, being a woman, doing what women will do, will verbally cross the line from the man's perspective. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that a woman is just crossing the line and they're unruly. No, amongst women, it is fine. It is normal to hear women, screaming at each other over there. Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, pick your culture, pick anywhere. Go to Africa and go to some market somewhere. That's kind of how they roll, right? So this guy, growing up with his mom, seeing that kind of behavior, fine. Where does personal responsibility come in? What does he need to do? And I know, like for example, you're thinking about this stuff. You're created a channel. This is a kind of personal responsibility kind of aspect to it. You're trying to change the negative connotation, so on and so forth. But I know it's a broad thing, but can you speak on personal responsibility and how that comes into play?
Well, the personal responsibility comes in when you can, well, one, look in the mirror and acknowledge that you need to improve or that there is something that's not right, or maybe you just need to get something under control. That's when it comes to self-transparency. That when you have transparency, that's when you can truly improve and
Hmm.
truly start taking accountability for yourself. But the problem is with just the human race, period, is that we lack transparency in a lot of
Hmm.
things. because everybody wants to be right, or everybody feels like their way is right. So when like accountability is out the window for most people. So because a lot of people cannot handle looking in the mirror and seeing that, wow, I got a problem. And I need to fix it.
How do you do that?
I've always been a very introspective guy. You know, I always self-analyze. I've always, because I think a lot. I'm a critical thinker to the core. I'm always, and also I have a problem solver brain. You know, I'm always thinking of how to solve an issue. So I'm always not so grading myself, but I'm always thinking of how I could be better. And I also don't have a problem admitting that, man, I was wrong in a situation.
I see. So you got that what I call that superpower, the introvert superpower, which it just tends it is what it is. And being an introvert myself, I don't know how to, because for me, yes, that's introspective, looking at problems head on, not hiding from yourself in any way, shape, or form. That's just absolutely normal to me as well. However, I don't know what kind of advice I could give. Perhaps I need to find an extrovert to interview and say, well, how do you extroverts actually think and go in there and really look and take responsibility and accountability? Because for us, it's easy. That's where we live all day. All day is accountability, right? So that's rather interesting. So responsibility begins with recognizing that you have a problem, right? And that makes perfect sense. Okay. So now, how important is it to or let me ask this one first, because it dovetails with what we just talked about. Guy only has his mother as an example. He cannot really, therefore, function thoroughly amongst other men, especially men in other groups, right? Not just, in the African American community, in other groups, that whole global perspective, because there is a worldwide global standard for men, right? With cross culturally. Now, coming out of that, you tend to find a lot of emphasis on women within this group, with men within this group. Okay. Game, swag, all this stuff is very, very much about women. You don't hear the Chinese guy in his Chinese element talking about that stuff. The media listening guy, whatever, talking about swag, game, and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times, especially when you're a young man, you grow up and you're looking at that and you think that's actually masculinity. You think this kind of hyper concentration on women is masculinity. Later on, you quickly find out, oh, that's 100% messed up. Like that is kind of absolutely crazy. So let me ask you this. Both in this space, okay, the manosphere, the Black manosphere, and in general, what do you think about, okay, let's just stick with YouTube and Black manosphere. Let's not make it so broad. Do you think there's a preoccupation with women, an overemphasis on the whole woman topic?
Yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Yes, it is which I get it. I know where it stems from. See, that I know where it stems from. Because always how many women that you can obtain adds to your bragging rights as a man. It's all about as the kids say today, flexing. It's about showing off, because what back then in the era of monarchies were everywhere and kings were a thing. Kings had a lot of women. And it's so funny because even today, having a bunch of women is associated with being a king. So it's very interesting how that same narrative still continues today. But having a bunch of women symbolizes power, desire, just like money, power, desire. And, people gravitate towards that, because
Mm-hmm.
if you look at, and that's why celebrity men is such a big thing, because
Mm-hmm.
one, they have women always desiring them. So that's one, they have the one aspect, and then two, then they have the money. And then you add the fame to it and everything like that. And it just feeds into the fantasy of being this ultra man. The ultra man, the alpha male, has all of the women. And that makes him top of the food chain as far as a man is concerned.
Mm-hmm. So, 100%. So it's a situation where people look at the result, right? They look
Hmm.
at the end. They're like, oh, he's got the women. Therefore, they just, because, and I'm painting a caricature now, because they don't actually know how to be men, they just start going towards the end. Let's do whatever we gotta take, whatever dog and pony show we gotta do, and however kind of emasculating behavior, which I find to all that swag and game stuff is very emasculating. Okay.
Mm.
The whole focus on women and is very, very emasculating. Okay. Just so we can get the women because that is the end. But in reality, okay, the king has the women because of what he has done, or what his father did, or what his forefathers did, right? The
Mm.
conquerors, right?
Right.
Which is about male usefulness, which had nothing to do with women to begin with, right? Somebody goes out there and he's on his purpose, as they say these days, right? And he builds something, or he strives, or he's useful amongst the group. He has a good network, so on and so forth. He gets money, therefore, by providing value. And
Right.
then the women, that's why it's like a watch, it's like an accessory. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It, if you see the watch now, you're going to be like, oh, let me just go steal and get the watch. But no, the watch is an accessory. It
Very
came after the journey. The journey had nothing to do with the watch. And this is just known universally in I mean, I'm not saying anything new or strange or groundbreaking, right? But
good.
within this particular community and this particular emphasis on women, 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 swag, 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 game, game, game. I'm a
Mhm.
dancing monkey. My 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 role models are all in entertainment slash sports, which is another entertainment thing again.
Mhm.
And which is highly it's all about aesthetics, right? Whether you talk about arts or entertainment or sports, it's all aesthetic pursuits,
Right.
which is never been something that is not the emphasis of male usefulness,
No,
right?
it's not.
What is useful really about aesthetic pursuits? Okay, aesthetics, anyways. So it is rather interesting that there is a gravitation towards this thing, but it is only the end. It is gravitating towards the watch when you don't understand that the watch represents something which is just an accessory to someone whom actually is providing value, and there is no value in game and swag and so on and so forth. So you answered the question rather directly. You said yes, that there is an overemphasis on that. Now, but what is the alternative then? Like, what should the
Mm.
space be about then, right? If it's not about the strong, I mean, I know what I'm about, right? And I have my own kind of a thing, but what do you think?
Finding your identity as a man. That's honestly what that the space should be centered around. Really, is finding your identity as, a man in this world. Because a man with no drive, a man with no mission, a man with no type of purpose or like, how about to say diedness, but destination. A man with
Mm,
no destination is not really a man at all. You're honestly just existing in the void that is life, the limbo that is just life. Air, the perfect example of the guy that has no job but lives with his girlfriend or whoever and just plays video games all day. It's like, what are you doing with yourself? You know, a man with no purpose gets no respect from the world. You have
mm,
to have something. You have to find your way. You have to find your niche in life. So without your niche in life, you cease to be valueless, like you said, a man that has value of use, a man of use. If you're not a man of use in this world, then you are considered a waste of space. You cannot do
mm,
that. But the thing is, one, that's it's so funny because that's one of the hyper focuses of a lot of men in the space is that women are not required to have use, so to speak. I mean, if they don't want to, they don't have to. They'll be taken care of. There is a certain envy there. Because I feel it myself. I feel it myself sometimes. It's like I would be lying to you if I said if I could change the roles and I would be a woman, a hot, attractive woman, I would do OnlyFans as well. Because it's because it's so easy. It's easy, and there's women that get money just for existing. They don't even have to take a shred of clothing off. Just be there and be a woman. You will get money thrown at your feet. So like it's insane because you have a lot of men, very high percent, because like you said, the value is on the accessory. That's where the term trophy wife came from. You know, trophy wife. You are dictated by how attractive your wife is. So if she is a trophy, so to speak, then that puts you on the pedestal of high value men, because what your woman looks like dictates how other men perceive you.
Yeah. However, it is very myopic. In other words,
Yes.
the trophy presumes, like, people don't just go to Mike Tyson and look at his belts, right? You may see where I'm getting at there.
Right.
It's the fights that matter, okay? It's the race that matters. The trophy is, again, just an accessory.
Right.
The trophy is a nice to have. It's shiny and it's a symbol. It's a reminder of the story. You see the wife and then you say, yes, that guy took over this company in the 80s by doing some crazy stuff in Wall Street, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
This trophy is a symbol. It's a reminder to tell the story again. It's not the end. In other words, it's not the value. Okay, just like the belt is not the value, the watch is not the value, the actual trophy cup stuff is not the value. Oh yeah, you see the Oscar. Okay, the Oscar was for what? It was for that movie. Oh yes, it makes sense, right? So on and so forth. So again, coming from a different culture, which very different culture, plus also the global universal culture, of which America tends to be rather separate from, for many reasons why America is very separate from many things, right? It tends to be very it's a strange kind of thing to me. Okay, and it goes back to that whole thing of now it's kind of like associated with, oh well, white people do that stuff, so let's not do it, right? Whatever that may be, which is known, be lame, right? Not have the game and the swag, and not be so focused on the women. So that's white, but really it's not white. It's more what men do all over the world. But because
Right.
you're in the fishbowl of America, it's either black or white, right? It's like,
Right.
oh, if you try to separate yourself from you got the white man on the brain, right? As they say, and it's like you forget that no, this is something that has to do with the world all over, right? So I asked, okay, where does responsibility come in? You said that responsibility comes in when you go ahead and you
Self-awareness.
realize that you have a problem, right?
Yeah, that's
You're self-aware,
self-awareness.
self-awareness. You realize that you have a problem. You say that yes, there is an overemphasis on the whole women thing in this space, and then you also said that, well, the way forward would be to find yourself, find your purpose, right? Which, and one thing that I tend to find here is often like this kind of romantic crazy story like that. I know AMS tends to talk about that, find your purpose, be on your purpose, be on your purpose, be on your purpose. And for the longest time I couldn't understand that, not because I didn't understand it, but because for me that's just second nature. Like, why are you even having to tell somebody to be on their purpose? And I now think I'm now getting it, because again, I think that people tend to look at the aesthetics, whether it be, if we talked about it before, whether it be actual aesthetics or in this case, women, right? As somehow something that is, I don't want to say, because a woman is, look, if anyone listening to this conversation here now think, that I'm saying that a woman is not important and so on and so forth, they're like, that has nothing to do with anything. Well, I'm talking about a man, and this is about the therapy of a black man. That's your series. Okay, we're talking about men here, and that men have to be men, and a man thinking about women, he has already kind of lost his way in terms of like if that's kind of like some kind of a focus, right? So it makes sense if people have that focus for you to have them to be telling them be on your purpose, be on your purpose, be on your purpose. Because if you don't have that as a focus, it does not have to be reiterated. So that's all very well and good. Now, let me ask you this: why YouTube? Okay, why did you start YouTube, and even beyond doing this particular series, right, the therapy series? Why
Yeah.
did you come on this in these YouTube streets? Associate would say.
Yeah. It honestly, it's very interesting that I actually started this YouTube channel 2 years ago. Just coming from a very turbulent situation with
Mm-hmm.
my son's mother,
Mm-hmm.
and that ended in flames. It was a terrible dumpster fire. It was god awful.
Hmm.
And it left me in shambles as far as at I realized from that point that I had no kind of purpose. I wasn't living for myself. I was living for the validation of a woman and putting my value into a relationship at that time, which allowed me to open myself to all of the various things that happened in that situation, which honestly I should not today I would not stand for.
Hmm.
And yeah, going through that, YouTube, I was looking for a way to create, music was always an outlet, but I was looking for like some other way to create. So I started a YouTube channel, and I figured that, I would I started off with NBA videos. I started off with NBA videos, and
Hmm.
yeah, copyright just completely destroyed me. So I was like, okay, the NBA does not like people making NBA videos, so let me just try something else. So, but my friend, one of my good friends, AMS, and I was just like, it was this crazy bald guy, just he was these country and saying all this crazy stuff. But at the time, I was building up to that point of finding my red pill moment, finding that aha moment, my epiphany, where I was like, wow, I am such and such age and I don't have my shit together. And that's when I started getting into more of that realm of that kind of content,
Mm-hmm.
self-improvement, concentration of, and just getting into that manosphere space. And now that I look back, my videos was really honestly nothing but a big therapeutic thing for me.
Hmm.
Because that you can literally go, it chronicles from my angry state. I was angry. I was very upset. And then I start getting out of that, and I started evolving into what I am today. And today, but yeah, I had a lot of videos where I sound very angry. I sound very hurt, like somebody processing something.
Hmm. 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 That is interesting. So started out NBA videos, made a few pivots along the way, went down the red pill rabbit hole, and
Mm.
from there continued to make pivots and so on and so forth. And you're seeing some kind of progress as it goes along. So, um, what direction are you going towards now with your channel? If people go to your channel, what kind of content should they expect, if you will?
The kind of content, doing what I used to do, but in a different way.
Hmm.
A more of from an entertaining perspective, instead
Hmm.
of talking into the void about women and how they're hypergamy and things like. But I am still highlighting these things, but just more of
Okay.
in a fun, because I'm a fun loving guy. I'm not really a hateful person. I don't
Hmm.
uh, I don't hold on to hate or anger that long. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's just more so me. I'm just reacting to various different things that I see on the internet. People might my subs send me things, and I look at them. They're also often surrounded around a lot of woman things, but also just pushing logical content, pointing out the stupidities of a lot of things that we see out here, but also just having fun, and also just trying to be uplifting at the same time. I might tell a story from my experiences of what I went through, and hopefully somebody could learn something from that.
I see. I see. So same kind of thing. Focusing more on entertainment, fun loving. I guess you've come out of the other side. You come out of the. You've seen the light. Some kind of partial light, at least at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
And when, okay, when did you? Because you kind of mentioned music in passing, right? When did
Right.
you start music? Okay, when did you start that? And
Yes.
what did you or and how? Like when and how did you start on your music journey?
I started at the ripe age of 18 years old. Just
Hmm.
graduated high school. My dad was always into music. He always was into music. He was a producer, self-taught, things like that.
Hmm.
So I was always around it. It was always, but I never found any kind of interest in it. I was an athlete for the first half of my life before I got into music, but I was just looking for something to get out of my shell with. That's how I got into music. It was just something because I grew up a shy kid, introverted kid,
Hmm.
and I just wanted to feel like not that scary kid anymore. So I was
Hmm.
like, okay, when I graduated high school, I was like, you know what? I am going to take this time and opportunity to not defer to being a shy kid. I'm going to break out. I'm going to be whatever the heck I was trying to be at the time. So, and it just so happened that it was music, and luckily my dad it was accessible, and I told my dad one day, it was like, yeah, I wanna rap, and he looked at me
Hmm.
with the craziest look. He thought I was just crazy because I never showed a sign of music,
Hmm.
of interest in music like that ever before. So
Hmm.
he gave me a beat, told me to take it home, write something to it, and come back the next day. So I came back the next day, and I blew him away. I was a natural songwriter. I had a natural knack writing lyrics, and
Hmm.
uh, he thought he had to, write for me.
Hmm.
And ever since then, I've wrote for myself. Have never gotten any help, and yeah, the rest is history. I kind of just fell in love with it. It was my second love. Basketball being my first, music was my second love, and we had a home studio there when I decided to go live with my dad, and I was in there. I was in there 2 hours, 3 hours. I was in there. I was obsessed. I taught myself how to engineer
Hmm.
things a little bit. I was just a man obsessed, and it
Hmm.
evolved into me actually taking it serious last year,
Hmm.
and I recorded my
Okay.
album.
Okay. Yeah, seen at least one of your videos with you in the parking garage on top of some car rapping. So I could definitely attest that what you say, being the natural writer, I I think I once mentioned that at least for me, it doesn't take, and probably for you too, it
Mhm.
doesn't take too much to know, as they say, game recognized game, right? To
Right.
know when someone's good at the wordplay with it doesn't take too like a few bars.
Right.
They're like, oh, okay, he knows what he's doing, right? So
Right.
I definitely got to give you that compliment there.
Thank you,
You are
sir.
100% right. Yes, you are good at what you do. Is there? Or let me before I ask what your new projects are, because it's already going past an hour, or oh yeah, right at the hour mark. Didn't want this to go too long, but what is your writing style? What would you say? It can be in terms of content, or it can be in terms of structure, or so on and so forth. Is there any kind of way in which you could define your writing style, your music style?
I would have to define it reality writing, reality rap. I can only rap from my experiences.
Hmm.
I can only rap from my inner inspiration of things that I've been through. Because those are the artists that my dad raised me on. Those are the artists that I gravitated to, and somewhat of a storyteller. So you would get
Hmm.
storytelling from me. You would get very transparent, uh, bars from me. So very
Hmm.
transparent, very storytelling, very just very kind of personal. Not too personal because I cannot do that. I will not name drop. I will not do none of that. But I will always find a creative way to get things out.
that is very interesting. Now that you mentioned it, yeah, at some point, when the stars align, we got to collaborate because
Definitely,
that is
definitely.
very much not me.
Yeah,
I for me, it's always very on the abstract and just it's very removed. Now, the feeling is very personal, right?
right, right,
Right.
right,
The feeling is personal, but the what comes out of it is very different. Just to give an example, I mean, it may not be a very clean example, but something is just coming into my mind right now in terms of what that means. It's like, okay, let's say I'm talking about struggle. Okay, I I'm going to talk about a painting now, right? Rather than whatever. Like if I'm talking about struggle, I'm not going to talk about any particular kind of struggle that happened in any kind of particular space or time or whatever. It may be a painting, and I'm switching now from talking about struggle is a song and now it's a painting, but the visual, okay, because for me it's always a visual representation. Like and I don't necessarily try to do that, but every time I just look back at my songs, I find that there's a lot of scenes being painted, right?
mm,
So there's a visual of a plane flying through, a storm and trying to get out of this particular storm. There's a little patch there where he could get out through the sunlight or whatever, and it's very abstract. It's almost like heroic and grandiose, right? And
right.
like it's hard to relate it to any particular kind of struggle that one may be going through and so on. So that tends to be my style. I've struggled to try to be more. I forget who the rapper was. I think it was. I forget his name now. But I forget the song too. But there's this guy who's very good at telling stories.
Right.
I think there was one called Domino. I believe that was
Mm,
his name, and
mm,
uh, I don't remember the lyrics now because I want to, but I listened to that as a kid. Even as a kid, right? I was like, this is rather brilliant how they can just go line by line by line by line, painting the next scene, while still doing the
mm,
wordplay and everything is working out. So I'm definitely like I'm in awe of that kind of writing, right? So I
right.
think it'll be a nice collab, where you can be realistic and grounded, and I could just fly off.
Yes, it would be a great contrast. It would be a great contrast. Here's one direction, and then we'll take it in a different perspective and take that. I definitely am waiting to do that. It's just I wish I was in a position to just be able to just seamlessly collab in a virtual sense, kind of how they do in the industry. Uh,
Mm,
necessarily you make a song, you're not recording in the same studio, but hey, send me a song, I do this, and I can just send the stems back to you. You can just go ahead and get your guy
mhm.
to edit that up. I'm still trying to figure that out because I have a lot of people that want to collaborate with me. Uh, so I'm definitely trying to figure that out because I'm doing more home recordings now because it's just the safer bet, right?
For me, and regarding this, it doesn't even. I mean, the finished product does not have to come out today, tomorrow, or even
Yeah,
ever, right? It's more like, oh, I may run into a beat or an idea or something. I send it to you, whatever you do. That kind of thing is more right. It's where it starts, where I'm kind of interested in. And for me, I always say that there are like two peaks when it comes to music. For me, one of them is performing, right?
hmm
Because it's a challenge. It's a whole different thing onto itself, right? It's different from recording, and then the other peak is writing, right? When
Right.
you get the right, when it's like boom, when you're like, oh, to yourself, you're like, oh my god, like I can't
Yeah.
believe I just did that, right? That's one peak of like, ecstasy right there. And then another one is in the performance. We can, but other than that, so I'm just trying to do some writing basically. Now, is there what artists do you like and why?
Ah, yes. I'm a big Jay-Z fan. Um, Jay-Z just I mean just the way that he delivers, the way that he articulates, and just how he can paint pictures with just effortless flow, because he just seems so cool on the track. It's insane. It's kind of like I envision him sitting back in a recliner chair and just rapping with the microphone to his mouth, because he just sounds so effortless, and him from his skill, his technique is just
Mhm.
it's amazing. High school, grew up a very big Drake fan. Just the personal stuff, because just his super personal level of writing, and just how it touches you because it's so personal and it's so relatable.
Mm.
Um, and just because he's such a versatile threat as well.
Mm.
So very versatile, and that's what I really gravitated me towards. That I thought he was just the coolest guy growing up.
Mm.
And the J. Cole, because he's just like, it's like that raspiness of the voice,
Mm.
that just you can feel just him being a reporter. That's another
Mm.
thing I almost forgot. Yeah, my reporting style as well, because I'll pick certain things that I might have seen, and I might report on that in a
Mm.
song, also intertwined with my personal things. Um,
Mm.
so
Mm.
just that too. How he just reports on what he sees, and reflects in his introspective type of style that he has as well. The Kendricks, a lot of versatile guys.
Mm.
I love everybody in the '90s of R&B. I like the '80s too. Huge Prince fan and huge Michael Jackson fan. Um, and man, yeah,
Mm.
that's pretty much rounds it up. I can't even name all of that from the '80s to the '90s. I'm a big '80s '90s buff.
Wow, wow, wow. You know what? Yeah, and as I mentioned off camera, I would like to, definitely have you back, have some more conversations. I know we could go off into the different
Yeah,
tangent here, talking about music, but this one is about picking up the pieces, right? And I think
right,
that was a very good conversation that we had vis-a-vis why you do this, why you have that series, which you're going to continue, and you're saying that it's going to be something that is going to be more on a conversation. You bring people in, and definitely trying to break down that negative connotation of, well, therapy is what white people do, having problems is what white people do, talking about their problems is what white people do, but all the while you're living in dysfunction, right?
right.
And not addressing it whatsoever. And also, it was interesting that you mentioned, yes, that there is a hyper focus on the woman aspect of things, and it may be a symptom of not having gotten past a certain thing, right? You haven't
Hmm.
gotten past a certain whatever that trauma is going on. You need to get past it and get on your purpose, as AMS would say. So yeah, I think that this was I really the time flew by. I definitely enjoyed the conversation. Shout out to Nicer. Yes, she said Domino, Ghetto Jam, and Sweet Potato Pie. Yes, yes, yes. There is a
Oh yeah,
swore
remember
you
that.
missed. Crash to a Tree Called University. I forget that song now, but it's the one where someone robbed. He robbed another and a sister and a brother. I don't know if you. Anyways,
It sounds familiar.
yeah,
It
that
sounds
that
so
one
familiar.
that's one of like the peak type of storytelling song. I may find it and send it to you. Because it's an old
Yeah,
track, but it's just like one. It's not one of those songs where it's just one long verse, right?
yeah,
Just one long verse, just starting from what happened, and then it goes on and on and on and on. And I have scenes in my head from that song. It's
yeah.
like
Yeah,
It's like a whole movie that he painted just with his words.
that
So
sounds. Ooh, shout out
well,
nicer. Oh, Slick Rick children's story, huh?
yes, yeah. That is it. Yes, that ends up with good night. Yeah, like
Yeah,
Slick Rick was another one. Slick was on. Yes. Great storyteller. I always wanted to be like that, but then I found out I got to find my lane. But something you mentioned about reporting is something that it sparked up because you always try to find new avenues to kind of broaden your horizon.
mhm,
Reporting is something that I think that I can add more of, even though I'm not so much of a storyteller. But with the scenes that I try to paint, I could try to paint for more reality rather than just painting more from an abstract and imagination.
right.
I'm huge with imagination. Like when it comes to drawing, which is something that I like to do as well. I
I
can't
wish.
do still life drawing. Do you like to draw?
I wish. I wish I could draw.
Okay.
I don't. I
No,
don't have a steady hand enough for it. No.
yeah, like could not stand still life drawing. Cannot look at something and draw it. I always just want to go off into what is in my head. So that is the kind of thing that I definitely like to do. Rick the Ruler, Slick Rick is the master storyteller. Indeed. Yeah, shout out everyone in the chat.
I'm
Shout out to King Bill Says for
specialist,
holding it
my
down.
guy. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you for having me on. This was great. Yeah, the time did fly by. I didn't even. Wow, we was at the hour mark pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's what happens when yeah, I think that it was definitely a useful conversation and a conversation that should be had. And for me, I'm not one that I don't find it easy to open up. Well, not necessarily easy to open up, but I'm very cautious
Mhm.
about putting certain things out there, right?
Right.
I can open up all day, in a certain setting, but in other settings, I like not to put certain things out there. And then for me, this topic of what you're talking about, again, the African American community, is a very touchy topic for me because, okay, I know this is not necessarily my community, right?
Right.
And it could easily become kind of a, well, who the hell are you and why are you talking about this and that kind of a thing. So I'm also always kind of careful about, well, let me not, and tread lightly, right? But so I brought you in to do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Anytime I could step in and lay some things down. Yeah, definitely. No, I'm very strategic in that way as well. Like I choose my words, choose them very carefully, depending on what the situation is and what the topic and subject. Make sure my subject matter is correct. But yeah, even if you do, people still find a way to say you're an idiot. So there's that. I've gotten that quite a bit.
100%, 100%. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go out. We're gonna go out with the theme song. Go ahead, okay. For those of you who are in the chat or watching later on, click, okay. The link is in the chat, and I will leave the link and a comment pinned to the top. Subscribe, okay. Go through his videos and go ahead and check out his music as well. Pretty good songwriter, I would say. Pretty good lyricist. I like your verse on 52. Might take her to Nobu. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go out with our theme track, The Battle Within. Peace.
Crashing on the shore, relentless in the war. The legions in our hearts, shed waters in our balls. The spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest. The cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded. The teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. philosopher blades. With gratitude and rage, we touch another page. With delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded. The teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we born Babylon. Yes, I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Yes, I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. The world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within.